Okay, let's discuss why space-time is doomed. I'm going to be using the work of Donald Hoffman to explain why our perceived reality is not the same as objective reality. So I've been reading A Case Against Reality by Donald Hoffman, and I've been making videos about it on TikTok, so follow along there if you want like a chapter by chapter, like great piece of info breakdown. But I've been reading chapter 7. Chapter 7 is, you can't really see it, virtuality, and I want to bring you through like this chapter because it's so good and like ties all the pieces together. So up to this point we've been talking about like how space-time just can't be real. Space-time is simply something we perceive, and it's not the primary building blocks of fundamental reality. And we're just now getting into why we see what we see and what fundamental reality might be. So virtuality, he even quotes it, "There is no spoon" by Spoon Boy. If you remember in the Matrix movie, there's Spoon Boy, I guess, sitting at that table, and Neo goes up to him, and Spoon Boy is bending a spoon with his mind. And Neo says, "How are you bending that spoon?" And Spoon Boy says, "There is no spoon." And I forget the exact quote, but he's basically like, the second you realize there is no spoon, you can bend the spoon. You can bend reality because it's so much more. Obviously, the Matrix ends in Neo realizing everything is code. Everything is just a simulation. And the second that he can see behind the scenes and sees everything is code, even like the bad guys that he's fighting, then he can easily defeat them because he just simply rewrites the code. So Hoffman starts off by saying, science can also mystify the mundane. Well, he starts here by saying, science can demystify the exotic. This talent leads to a new technology from cell phones to satellite, which can be indistinguishable from magic. Here's a quick video of my thoughts on that. Do you guys realize we can literally do magic? I was watching Winx, and Stella made like that little light appear in her palm because she's a light fairy. And I was like, whoa, that'd be so cool to just like pop up balls of light. And then I was like, wait, I can. I was sitting in my dark living room, and I was like, Alexa, light on. And my light popped on. Science can demystify the exotic. This talent leads to new technology from cell phones to satellites, which can seem, in the words of Arthur C. Clarke, indistinguishable from magic. I was listening to a podcast with Matthias De Stefano as the guest, and he was saying that we have never had a time in human history where consciousness is as high as it is and technology is as advanced as it is. And we are in a time where our consciousness, like vibrations, are so high that we can just like do stuff with the technology that we have advanced. And I think that's a beautiful way to see the sometimes scary side of technology about what our future holds. Okay, so for example, I see a spoon sitting now on the table over there. This is so commonplace that I'm not tempted to give it a moment's thought. But here, where I don't expect it, science injects a profound mystery. We still don't understand now and there. We don't understand time and space, which we take for granted, which are woven into the very fabric of our daily perceptions and which we assume are a true and reliable guide to physical reality. Donald Hoffman's whole thing is that physical reality is not real. It's simply an interface. It's simply, he has this interface perception theory, which is basically everything is something that we designed to help us navigate objective reality based on fitness payoffs. And fitness is our ability to survive as a species and reproduce. So we only see what is helpful for us to survive, not the objective truth. He ran a bunch of models that basically shared that our chance of seeing the ultimate truth was 0%. Because of all the things that quantum physics and other areas of science are proving, we know that our perception of space-time cannot be the ultimate truth. David Gross says everyone in string theory is convinced space-time is doomed, but we don't know what it's replaced by. Fields medalist Edward Witten has also suggested that space-time may be doomed. More people saying space and time are illusions. Nima Arkhani Hamed explained what physics is supposed to be about is describing things as they happen in space and time. So if there's no space-time, it's not clear what physics is about. And this is kind of incredible, right? Because everything we've studied up to this point is simply one facet of what our entire reality could possibly be. And Hoffman is like, this is wonderful news because now we can find out the truth. If you're a scientist, your job is to discover the unknown. So now there's simply more unknown for you to discover. So you could never possibly be out of a job. And I think physicists sometimes get so caught up in being right and, oh, my theory's right, my theory's right. And yeah, it might be a little bit right, but there's also more to the story. I feel like it's kind of the equivalent of like if you were a detective and you spent your whole career like fighting one bad guy, you know, like researching everything about him, you know, he's a criminal, you're like, this guy sucks, and like you uncover all his crimes, put him in jail, only to realize that he was just a cog in the machine of like an underground mafia. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that your work was wrong and your work is important, but it's just one facet of the entire group. There's still everything else in the whole organization to uncover. Hoffman goes on to say, the news that space-time is doomed and objects with it does not yet inform current theories of visual perception. Current theories of visual perception assume that objects in space-time are fundamental. However, he is going to briefly discuss the standard theories of perception and propose a new slant on our perception of space-time and objects, including ITP, his interface perception theory, and the holographic principle. The holographic principle is that the amount of data that you can store in an object depends on its area. The data is stored on the surface area, not the volume of the object. And Donald Hoffman's whole interface perception theory is that our world is kind of like the desktop of a computer. Like, we see the icons on the desktop, we see like the trash can, we see like the file icons, and those are simply like to help us. That's not the objective reality about a computer. Obviously that little trash can icon isn't like real trash of like the computer, you know what I mean? Like, it's simply a little thing, a little icon we designed to help us use the reality of the computer. The reality of the computer is like the hardware, you know, the hard drive, the whatever, blah, 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 the software, and then also like the coding behind it, the computer coding, the machine coding, like everything in the computer, right? All the wires, it's like, you got it. The whole computer, it would be really hard for us to use if we had to like type in binary code every single thing we wanted to do. It's way easier to just drag the blue files, the blue folders into the trash can icon. But what's really happening, of course, is tons of coding and stuff behind the scenes. So isn't that so interesting that the holographic principle of the universe is also saying that all information is stored on the surface of an object, like a black hole, you know, all the information is stored on the surface and not within the volume of the black hole, the same way that on a computer, like all the information is stored on the desktop. And what Hoffman is proposing is this is similar to how we perceive reality. In the same way that a trash icon is intended to help us hide the truth, to help us use the truth, that's what our reality is doing to help us with fitness payoffs, to help our species survive and reproduce. And so what he's talking about in this chapter, this new outlook on space-time and objects flow from the idea that our perceptions have evolved to encode fitness payoffs and to guide adaptive behavior. Somehow, space-time and objects do just that, but how? I propose they do it in part by data compression and error correction of fitness information. So data compression, he uses the example in the book, like let's say you want to send a vacation photo of your family, you have to compress the photo to the proper size. If it's too massive, it won't send, and you also can't see it because it'll be like so zoomed in. But you also can't compress it to too tiny, or you won't be able to see the photo what it is of it all because it'll be too tiny. And so you need the proper compression size to send the photo and make it usable. And this is what we do in processing our reality. Everything that space-time shows us is a properly compressed image. For example, he says, I can't handle hundreds of dimensions, but I can handle a few. This compression no doubt omits some information about fitness. I don't, for instance, see the millions of muons that streak through my body each day, damaging it with ionizing radiation, but I do see enough information about fitness to survive and raise offspring. We see objects in 3 dimensions not because we reconstruct objective reality, but because this is the format of a compression algorithm that evolution happened to build into us. I used this example in a video I made somewhere, but you know, I had this breakthrough one time when I was paying for my groceries at the grocery store, and I scan my stuff on the scanner, and then the you know, whatever I have to pay pops up, and then I pay it. And then later in the day, I was eating some of my groceries, and I was using my Fitness Pal to track my macros, and when I scanned the barcode, my macros popped up, like how much protein I was eating. And I was like, wow, isn't that so interesting that it's the same barcode, like it's that same, you know, white rectangle with the black lines. And when I scan it on the grocery store thing, it tells me the price, and when I scan it on my Fitness Pal, it tells me the macros. So think about all the information that's encoded in each barcode. It's a ton of stuff. The macros, the price, the company, the expiration dates. I don't know what's encoded in barcodes, honestly. But like, it's way more information than that scanner's telling us. But the price scanner just gives us the price. The MyFitnessPal just gives us the macros, and it's designed that way because it's not, the goal of those particular machines aren't to give us all information of all time, the entire objective truth about this product. It just wants to give us the one piece of information that we need to know for that moment. So this is what we do for our objective reality. Each species has evolved to only see and read the exact information that they need to know to survive. So whatever the objective reality is, and like all of the barcode information is not necessarily the thing that we are reading. We are only getting the one piece of information that we need at that time. Hoffman goes on to talk about what aspect of these objective realities are encoded. What aspect of fitness are we programmed to see? What do we want to see? And so he shares some cool experiments. Dennis Proffitt and his collaborators found that people given a drink containing glucose make shorter estimates of a distance than those given a drink containing no carbohydrates. People who are more aerobically fit make shorter estimates of a distance than those who are less fit. This suggests that our perception of distance depends not just on the energy cost, but on the ratio of energy cost to our available energy. And if we know our reality is based on simply the ratio of energy cost to our available energy, well, that simply can't be objective reality we're seeing every time. The next thing he talks about is error correction. So if you go online, his example in the book is if you buy flowers for mom, they're $60, okay, you put it in, no problem. And he's like, but what if you actually noticed when you checked your credit card statement a few days later, you had spent $6,000 on the flowers and not just 60. You added those 2 extra zeros. And he's like, if there was no error correction in the software systems that we use today, these mistakes would be pretty frequent. But there's a lot of these encoded in the software to help you not make these types of mistakes. A key to detecting and encoding, so like how do softwares do this? A key to detecting errors and reducing them is through redundancy. He uses a simple example as repetition. So you want to send 4 bits of data like 1101, you can send it 3 times. The receiver checks that all 3 transmissions agree. If they do, there's no error, but if they differ, then she detects an error. One manual way that we do this is obviously typing in your password and then it's like confirm password, so you have to put it in twice. But what Bekenstein and Hawking discovered about space-time is that space-time is redundant. 2 dimensions contain all information in any 3D space. This is the well-established holographic principle. And it is because if all information is encoded in the 2D. So the way Stephen Hawking found this is that when they were studying black holes, like they were doing the calculations about black holes with volume, which has 3 dimensions, and they couldn't do them. Like they didn't make any sense. And so then they reduced it to just 2 dimensions, like the X and Y, the surface, and then the calculations worked. So they realized all information must be encoded on the surface of a black hole. And if it's all on the surface of a black hole, that's all the information of all time. So it could almost be like our universe is a hologram. It is a 3D projection of a 2D world. Everything we're living in is simply a projection rather than ultimate truth. Physicists have discovered specific ways that the geometry of spacetime can be interpreted as a quantum error-correcting code. Spacetime and objects are simply a code used by our senses to report fitness. Okay, that was part 1. Then the chapter dives into consciousness and it gets so juicy, but I was getting tired of sitting in the coffee shop. I needed a walk, so stay tuned for part 2. That's why I love running my own business, by the way, and decoding the universe. Like, I can never be out of a job because there's so much to go and live and enjoy.